Okay, so we need to build a library for Dungeon Fantasy and start a bard. So when you make a new character, by default it uses the default library. That may not be the right one for your needs for this character. In this case, it's not. So we're going to build a library first. Click on Manage Your Library. That's this button up there I just clicked. And we have a bunch of libraries already, but I'm going to make a new one for this example. So click on New, type in the name. Make sure it's descriptive because you never know how many you'll end up with. I don't know what some of the libraries I have do. All libraries start with basic set. We don't want that in this case, so we're going to delete it. If you don't have this pane at the bottom that shows all the various books, you get it by clicking Manage Books. So all GURPS books are things that come with GCA. User books are things that may be in your documents that you create yourself or get from friends or whatever. In this case, we're looking for a world book. We have those in this folder here because they may be full of things that are compatible with the general GURPS line. Things like After the End, Dungeon Fantasy, Monster Hunters, etc. In this case, we want Dungeon Fantasy RPG. It's the only book we need. It's self-contained, represents everything in the box set. So you can double click it or you can click Add to Included Books, and that will put it up here. This is what we're doing in the Dungeon Fantasy RPG, for example, library. Always pick just the files you need. Don't add a lot of extras because, as you see, there's a lot of files and there may be a lot of incompatibilities if you add a bunch of extra stuff. Okay, so now our library is done. We click OK. It's created. Now we'll create a character that uses it. File, New, choosing Library. Brings up the same dialog. In this case, it's going to continue on with character creation as soon as we pick what we wanted. So in this case, Dungeon Fantasy, Dungeon Fantasy. Click OK, it loads the library. And I'm also going to interject here. I put up an update for this file today because the languages were in the wrong spot. So you want to make sure that you're updated. You can do that really simply. Help, check for updates. That will load close GCA, so don't do it right now. That will close GCA and run the updater, which will show you there will be an update. We'll click OK, it will load it in and restart GCA. Okay, so now we have the Dungeon Fantasy RPG library for this character all set. Here's our Bardic Talent, page numbers. So in this case, you can start building your bard right now, using the book as your guide. Or you can come down here to Templates and start Bard. It's Dungeon Fantasy, so the first thing is pick your melee package. I'm going to pick Rapier. And then we want our Bard. We're going to pick an instrument. I'm going to pick Lute because I have no imagination. And that brings us to the selection dialog. There will be 8 of these. This first one is just general advantages of Bard song abilities and things like that. You may have a good idea of what you want. I don't. Notice there's also a lot of languages and things in here. So you can pick what you like. If you click random, it will randomly pick a bunch of stuff trying to match our goal of 60 points. As you see, it picked a couple versions of Gnomish here, or an entertainer, another language, some extra basic speed and IQ, and fairy as well. So this is pretty language heavy because there are a lot of languages in the list. Random is good if you're building NPCs, or if you just don't care about disadvantages or something. You can also pick randomize remaining template selections if you want to close out the entire thing all randomly. Since I don't really know how to build a bard, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to finish me off with all random selections. Now, one of those selection dialogues was 15 points of spells, which it didn't pick because you're allowed to pick those later, so it would have been an option of up to 0 points or more, so it picked 0 points. So we're at 235 because it doesn't know what our points are. So in campaign settings, I can change that to 250 because it's a Dungeon Fantasy RPG game, and that's usually where they start. So do that. Now we have 15 points clearance. So you can go to spells. Bards uses specific allowed groups of wizardly spells, including things like communication and empathy. So you can come in here and you can pick your spells, and GCA of course will help you do prereqs and everything. So then you can just finish off your bard. I'm going to end there because I'm not really building a bard, but I hope this helps.